You're watching Bread and Roses, a weekly political social magazine that's broadcast in English and Persian via New Channel TV. Hello everyone, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya. In this week's program, we'll be discussing the 35th anniversary of the massacre of political prisoners in Iran. We'll interview Yasaman Bayani on this issue.
The shocking news of the week is from Aceh province in Indonesia and a curfew on women after 11 p.m. The insane fatwa is from the UAE and how you're not allowed to go to Mars.
The good news is about the Syrian woman who threw away the burqa to show that they are free from ISIS.
We also have a letter of the week. We're going to be responding to a viewer on whether we should be respecting people's beliefs or not. Stay with us. From 20th June 1981, the Islamic regime attacked and executed hundreds of people a day. They closed down newspapers and crushed the opposition. This was the point of the Islamic Republic's establishment, not the 1971 Iranian Revolution. Many don't remember this day, but it's an important moment in the formation of the Islamic Republic. We must remind today's generation that the regime is the result of a massive crime against humanity. This must be remembered, recorded, stated, exposed, and not forgotten, especially since many of those who organized the murders and killings still run the country. 20th June 1981 is a day that a lot of people will never ever forget. It's one of those days where you start hearing about people just being rounded up and arrested and often being executed that very same day with very sham trials of possibly 5 minutes, if at all.
I remember those dark days very clearly. Every day we would listen to BBC Persian service or Iranian radio, as well as reading newspapers. Every day we were receiving shocking news, right? Continuous bombardment of horrible news, a layer of intelligentsia, a layer, you could hear famous poets, intellectuals, students, a whole generation of Iranian sort of, but a different age group, they were massacred by the Islamic regime.
And also, a lot of them were buried in mass graves. Some of their families have never really seen even where they're buried. Khavaran, which is what the regime called the place of the damned, is really a wonderful place for many who want to commemorate and remember these beloved who've been killed. And they go and mark this anniversary by going to their grave sites, these mass graves.
And we must remember, these people were the best of the Iranian society. These are people who wanted a better Iranian society, and there were, the opposition to the Islamic regime, who was new and were trying to organize itself, was immense, and sort of it was gaining power in Iran in opposition to the Islamic regime. It took a year, and suddenly the Islamic regime turned the fascist. The fascism of the Islamic regime suddenly came out. What we see today what ISIS is practicing, it was in Iran was practiced in a very short period, and they massacred thousands upon thousands of people. Many of those people we never would know their names. The thing is that the Iranian society psychologically hasn't got over that, and there is a deep demand for the truth to come out, and that's why every year people remember it. There's international sort of everywhere there are protests, and the Iranian society is not going to forget this.
And also, one of the things we talked about earlier in another program is about Iran Tribunal, which is basically people who've survived or have grievances against the regime for loved ones killed, went to a tribunal, a sort of mock tribunal like the Russell Tribunal, and judges found the Iranian regime guilty of crimes against humanity for that period. And of course, there have been other periods as well, but it is a very, very crucial period in Iranian history.
Absolutely, and I think it seems that everybody in the psyche of the Iranian sort of population, everybody is waiting for the moment for the truth to come out. What happened in those days? We know what happened in those days, but at the same time, people who actually committed those crimes need to take responsibility. They need to be brought to justice. No revenge. I mean, that's one of the key. No revenge.
But
People
justice.
People want justice,
Yeah.
not revenge.
I will now go to an interview with Yasaman Bayani, who's a rights activist. I mean, she lost many friends and loved ones during this time. Her sister as well, and she talks about how, her mother never received the body of her sister, and they assume that she was buried in Khavaran, what the regime calls the place of the damned. But it is a wonderful place for those of us who want to commemorate the resistance and people who were never defeated by this regime. Stay with us. Hello Yassi, welcome to Bread and Roses. I wanted to ask you about 30th of Khordad, which is the 20th of June. What's the significance of this date?
The reason we commemorate this day every year for the last more than 30 years, or I would say 33 years, is because in that year the newly established Islamic Republic of Iran started a vicious attack by arresting hundreds and hundreds of activists on the street from demonstrations, from their homes, and then attacking houses, attacking different organizations, and then executing many activists and publishing their names in daily newspapers in hundreds across Iran. And during that time, by the numbers published by Amnesty International, during very short, brief time, less than a couple of years, at least names of over 2,500 people are known, but the real numbers are in tens of thousands, because many names were not published. Many people were killed under torture. So this is a very important attack by the newly established Islamic Republic of Iran, the government, on any kind of opposition. And that's why the government was never responded to these atrocities. The people who were executed, many of them were buried in mass graves, and many of them are our classmates from university, from factories, from our families, immediate members of families. So this is really significant for us that after over 30 years, this almost close to, or maybe genocide of Iranian dissidents has not been ever responded by that government, and we really need to keep this memory alive. So we ask the government or anybody who comes to power in Iran to respond to these atrocities.
What was your own personal experience during that time?
I was horrified. It was like when you went on the streets. I remember I was on the street. If you were suspicious, the paramilitary, the Islamic paramilitary would just come and grab you, arrest you, and they would take you to prison. And many people were executed right after those arrests, even not with their real name known, because many of them didn't want to give their name. So many people were it was a reign of terror, so that the government is able to establish and to get rid of any kind of protest or any dissident. So my personal experience is one of horror, and something I need to keep alive so that it's not repeated, because we know that these experiences are unfortunately repeated over and over. So by remembering and keeping the people who are doing these atrocities, the government who are doing these atrocities, accountable. We hope that to prevent these kind of atrocious acts by the government of Iran or any government per se.
Do you remember any specific story of someone you knew or yourself during this time, just so people can get a sense of exactly what sort of things happened to individuals?
So individuals were for example, my sister was a medical student from University of Tabriz, and she was arrested. We never had any opportunity to, my family had never able to see her at any prison. She was arrested like a few days after, like a couple of weeks after the severe oppression started in June, and then she was, within 2 months, she was executed. And so many people were executed, people who were protesting on June 20th and 21st. Many people, young people, were arrested, and they were executed early in the morning, and families never found out where they are. So there are thousands and thousands of families. We could say that millions of Iranians, including the extended families, who each have a member who were executed during that time. And so these are really, really fresh memories for many Iranians. At the same time, the government tried to keep it quiet. So you're able to talk to millions of other Iranians who don't even they don't even know about these atrocities. So it's just like an ongoing effort for all of us to keep this alive, and just reminder of all those people who were like my sister, like many of my classmates in university or even from high school, who had to go through a very short period of some of them who had a trial, and then their name published under acting against the government of Allah. That was indeed one of the things written in the newspaper, one of the official newspaper. My sister, along with many hundred other people, they acted against the government of Allah, and that was so ambiguous. Who is the government of Allah, and why should be people tortured, executed within hours, within days, with Islamic trials who may not even last a minute? So these are the harsh reality for millions in Iran.
Do you know where your sister's buried, and if you can tell people about Khavaran as well?
Khavaran is a cemetery in southern Tehran, and it used to be a place to bury people who were like from Buddhists, like few Buddhists who lived in Iran. So it was like a fringe cemetery. And because my sister and hundreds, thousands of other dissidents were not, or they were ex-Muslim, they were communists. They were not allowed to be buried in the regular cemetery like Behesht Zahra or other Muslim cemeteries, so-called Muslim cemeteries, and they were buried in mass graves in Khavaran. And of course they were buried clandestinely, like in midnight, but families were there all the time. Families were monitoring, and they were, after these forces of torture, the agents of the government, left, families would dig in, and they would realize that some of them they didn't have any bullet wound on their bodies. So they were actually killed under torture. They had no sign. So this is the talks I had with many families who had said that our child was not killed by death squad or by shooting at them. They were killed in different ways, so under torture, because there was no coroner's report or anything like that. Like, family had to do the work themselves.
And I mean, Khavaran has a very special place, doesn't it, for people? I mean, people go there every year to commemorate those buried there.
That's correct, and it is an ongoing effort by the families, and it is an ongoing oppression by the government and the police force to prevent families to go there. They even wanted to bulldoze there. They already bulldozed part of it. So for me, there may not be ever any chance to go and find my sister's remains by any DNA testing or anything like that, but we know that they're buried there. And the government never told us where they buried the bodies. That information was never given to my mother, who actively went prison by prison to find out what happened.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We hope you enjoyed that wonderful interview with Yasaman Bayani. Before we move on to the next segment, we do want to tell you about two wonderful books and films about this period in Iranian history. One is a book called Children of the Jacaranda Tree. It's by Sahar Dalijani. She was actually in her mom's tummy when her mom was arrested, and she was born in prison, which is the story of many women and children during that period. There's also a book by Nima Sarvestani, and it's called it's called Those Who Said No. We're going to show a short trailer of it, and it really shows the depths of the crime during that time.
یادم بعد از کشتار سال 67 تو بهداری اوین بسترین کردن. رو تختی که من خوابیدم اونا حتی دادگاهی شدن، حتی تو اون تخت شکنجه شدن تو تخت بهداری و همونجا بعدش زندانی رو میبردن و اعدام میکردن روی برانکار. شاید فردا قدر این نسل تونسته بشه، نسلی که تو سیاه‌ترین روزهای میهنمون از همه چیش گذشت.
Mr. President, distinguished members of this tribunal, in the dark summer of 1988, by tapping on the cold walls of their cells, prisoners in the Go-Hartasht establishment spread the news of the arrival of the mysterious Death Commission. Today they can speak to this court without fear, as the Iranian people listen and await historic justice.
ببینید اسم شما به عنوان کسی که در سال 67 مسئول اعدام در زندان اوین بوده مطرح شده. حالا این امکان برای شما هست که از خودتون دفاع بکنید.
حالا تو اعدام شدی؟
من نشدم، اما اگر شده بودم که نمیتونستم به عنوان شاکی بیام در دادگاه شرکت کنم.
تو خودم یکی از شاکیام، تو خودت الان اگه شاکی اگه اعدام شدی تو شاکی باش، هم داری شاکی باش.
خیلی خاک شد، خیلی داخل امیران خاک شد. روز میبردن دستور میدن برای قبل کندنش، شو هم میبردن دست بکردن. شو مثلا 5 تا 4 تا 10 تا همه جوان دیگه بیشتر از 20 سال نداشتن.
سواری مینیبوس کردن و بردن سر محلی که اعدام میکنن. من پشت اون پاسداری که وایساده بودم، اون طرفش یه پسر بود، یه پسر بچه. واقعا میتونم بگم 13 سالش نبود، 14 سالش نبود، بچه بود.
پور محمدی الان رئیس سازمان بازرسی کل کشوره. خب ما اولین باری که همدیگه رو دیدیم توی دادگاه بود. اون جزو هیئت بود، من همین متهمی که اونجا حاضر شده بودم و راجع به جونم داشتم تصمیم میگرفتن. خب حالا این دفعه در واقع توی اجلاس جهانی میبینمش. خب چرا یه همچین کسی که دست تو جنایت علیه بشریت داشته راحت میتونه بیاد تو اجلاس‌های بین‌المللی اینجا و بره؟
گفتن که دستمونو بذاریم روی دست پاسداره و این انگشتمون روی انگشتی که مشرفشه. من این کار کردم و بعد دست رو شلیک کنم و شلیک شد.
Shocking news of the week is from Indonesia's Aceh province, and what's happened is that women after 11 p.m. are no longer allowed to go out without being accompanied by a male guardian or husband.
That's amazing. This is another attack on women's rights, and you always see these reactionary religious groups behind this. And you know what they want to say, look, we're looking after women, we don't want them to be threatened, but in reality they are put them in a very inferior position, and they are pretending there is the issue of safety, but it isn't actually attacking women, because a lot of people working at that time, they work in restaurants and bars, they are trying to push them back into home.
And it's interesting, they always use this thing of that they're trying to protect women. This is the excuse the Iranian regime gives, for example, when it denies women access to stadium. ISIS does it, they all do it, they're all one and the same, and basically it is to push women out of the public space. And one of the things that one of the officials has said, which is in my opinion a threat, it says that it may lead to sexual harassment and sexual violence, and there's nothing they can do, because they're basically saying that women who do work or go out at this time are getting what they deserve.
Absolutely, and that's always justification for this, and I think this needs to be condemned.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the reality of the matter is that, you know, women should be allowed to travel freely, to move freely without any sort of curfews and impositions. And this is just one more example of Sharia rules, Islamic rules on the lives of women. There's a fatwa from the UAE which says that those who want to go to Mars will commit a sin and it shouldn't be allowed. And these are for people who might apply to then go, you know, be part of the first group of people going to Mars. And what's interesting is they say it's so hazardous, you know, they don't want people to go through such a hazardous journey. And I guess it's because they prefer to have them here so they can kill them.
Absolutely.
And have them at reach.
Absolutely. You know, I think they're against science, they're against happiness. Mars exploration, it just advances human science.
And there's no Islamists on Mars. I like it.
Possibly that's why.
I want to go to Mars.
I think the thing is that it shows that there is no God. It shows that the religion, you know, advancement of science actually undermines everything that I was saying. That's why I think deep down they don't like any of these things. I wonder what they thought of people going to moon. They never said anything, did they? No.
But what's funny is they've said that there's no righteous reason for someone to go on this mission because it will kill themselves, which means that there are good reasons to kill yourself. It's called suicide bombing. Yes. That's fine.
Yes.
But going to Mars where, you know, your life might be at risk is not looked at favourably.
Well, I think we should just forget about what they said and carry on with the Mars mission. Go to Mars.
And what's great is there's obviously, I think, 500 people who've applied from Saudi Arabia to go on the Mars mission and from other Arab countries. So there's a huge demand, relatively
And they are
speaking,
ignoring the fatwas.
Yeah.
Now, the good news, or shall we say fantastic news for this week, is the moment was captured in a photo, that woman escaping from the areas under control of ISIS. They were throwing away their burqa, and you know, you could see the freedom in the body movement and the fact that we're throwing things.
And the colours that were underneath their burqas, bright colours,
absolutely
happy colours.
And all these sort of people who actually argue for Islamic dress as a culture, as all people wanted. That moment destroyed every argument.
Yeah, I wonder if these feminists want to go there and say, you know, that's the right to dress. You need to put that back on.
Put it back on.
You're violating your cultural traditions.
I think it was a brilliant moment.
It was brilliant.
You know, sometimes these moments they capture, you know, a lot, and it destroys a whole lot of arguments against, you know, freedom of women to dress, and the fact that everybody knows that burqa, chador, hijab, Islamic dress is imposed, is compulsory, is actually brought by sheer force and brutality, and people actually don't want it.
I mean, this is one of the things we always say is, you know, when they say people have the right to dress, we say, well, what they're wearing underneath is their dress. Yes. And if you look at the dresses of these women, we're going to show pictures on the screen. It is just, you know, these are one of those photographs that speak a million words, not even 1,000 words. They are so wonderful because you see that blackness and that bleakness of ISIS being removed, and just color and life, you know, shining through. So this is really good news for us, and we were celebrating after we saw those photos. Now, as you know, we are now going to be addressing a question or comment from our viewers in every program. And this week, we're going to be addressing a question posed by Mehdi, who has written to us in Persian about how he enjoys our program, but that he thinks that we should not be criticizing people's beliefs and opinions.
Or undermining it. I mean, one of the characteristics of this program is, and I think part of the free thinking sort of approach to life, is that nothing is sacred, and everything is subject to doubt, questioning and criticism, and that's part and parcel of human progress. As soon as you start limiting, you know, the ability to question, you've lost the game.
But also, I mean, the reality is that people's beliefs are not all homogeneous. Not everybody agrees.
It's not fixed.
It's not fixed.
Always changes.
People can change their minds. People can leave religion. People can become rationalists, and so on and so forth. And so, even he likes our program, but he's worried that we are disrespecting people's beliefs.
And I think this is not about disrespecting people. Beliefs are thoughts. You need to fight it. You need to challenge it. We fight on ideas all the time. You know, we do on ideas all the time, but the respect is there. I think that's the key. We respect people. Ideas are subject to criticism, doubt, attack, you name it. It's out there. We'll be at it for a long time, but we respect every human being.
And that's the there's that good quote which says, "I respect you too much as a human being to respect your ridiculous beliefs." Yes. And so, you know, in a sense, it is important to carry on that challenge. Before we go, I'd like to remind you of two important dates. One is the 17th of June, which is a day of action in support of Raif Badawi and his lawyer Walid Abu Khair. It is a day to put attention on their cases and to put pressure on the Saudi government to release them immediately. We also want to remind you, dear viewers, that Ramadan is coming soon, and we will, as we did last year, drink and celebrate in defense of all those who break fasting rules at risk to themselves.
And I think really, I mean, I know we disagree with this. I am calling, and I'm sure you support me on this, Maryam, for people to join us. We did this last year. We're asking people to join us in solidarity with people who actually are suffering on a daily basis under the Islamic sort of rules and regulation and restriction imposed. You know, I think that's important for us to spread this as a form of resistance, and we'll break fast every day of Ramadan because to show solidarity with the people who actually are suffering.
And of course there are groups of young people in particular in places like Morocco and Tunisia who do this and who go on picnics and are sometimes beaten by the police and arrested, and this is something we need to continue doing. Well, we've reached the end of our program. We hope you did enjoy the program. We want to remind you about our Patreon site. We've got 17 patrons now. One more, so we're very excited. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving up.
Is this new?
This is my new thing.
Okay, all right, okay.
So we hope you had a good program.
Time,
yeah, enjoyed it, and we hope to see you again, same time, same place next week. Bye.
Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya.
We're hosting a program called Bread and Roses. It's a weekly program that's broadcast in Persian and English in the Middle East and North Africa, primarily Iran as well. And it's also shown on YouTube internationally.
And we've been doing this since last May. We're coming up to our year's anniversary, and we've had quite a lot of fun making these videos.
We discuss taboo-breaking, free-thinking ideas. The Islamic regime of Iran has called us immoral and corrupt.
And that's why you need to support us. We are the alternative voice in Middle East and North Africa.
Of corruption and immorality. So do support us. Here's a short video from Patreon that explains how you can help us with even just $1 a week. That's nothing. Support us.
Patreon lets fans become patrons of their favorite artists and content creators. It's different than Kickstarter because it's not about one big project that requires lots of funding. It's more for bloggers or YouTubers or webcomics, anyone who creates on a regular basis. Here's how it works. When you become a patron, you're agreeing to give an artist a tip of an amount you set every time they release a piece of content, whether it's a new song, a video, or a recipe. You can set a monthly maximum to make sure that you're always within your budget. Choose an amount, enter your payment information, and you're done. Becoming a patron allows you to view and post in the artist's stream, and in exchange for your support, artists offer additional patron packages, which might include monthly Google Hangouts, music production tutorials, pre-sale concert tickets, or anything they can offer as a way to say thanks. Patreon, empowering a new generation of content creators.